What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Zetro's Toxic Vault. Alongside myself, I have always Mr. Walter Morgan.
Hey.
Hey, I like that hat you got on.
I do too.
Like
Thanks,
mine?
Jeff.
Yeah, Death Wish Coffee, man. They take care of us, don't they?
They do. And
They
it's
do.
a great
they're,
product.
They're a great product if you like coffee. Death Wish Coffee.
Strong
is
coffee.
Strong, kick your ass fucking coffee. They usually
Zippy.
take care of the show very well. They've even given us stuff to give out to you guys as contests, which we'll constantly be running. So, fucking horns up to Death Wish Coffee, right, Walt?
That's right.
All right.
Always.
We drink it on the show while we're here. Anyway, today's episode is going to be pretty much about how I got the music that made me who I am today. The music that kind of defined and pays homage. There's your word, homage to me, and how I came up to
Your
playing
main
the music
and how you shaped your voice.
how I shaped my voice. But I think more of the music that I think sparked this whole thing. And I guess I would start early because my first record that I'm going to talk about is actually Led Zeppelin 4. And the reason why Led Zeppelin 4 is it has Stairway to Heaven on it. And I was 8 years old when this album came out. And
Robert Plant at his finest.
part of this was my father was a biker, was an old school biker here in Dublin, California. And the only one in town at that time. And I think back in the late 60s, early 70s, guys that rode Harleys were always kind of put in like as they must be in some kind of motorcycle club or something like that. You know what I mean? And my father was not in any club. He was just a very dedicated biker. He built custom Harleys. His nickname was Panhead John because that was the type of motor that he always rode his 64 Pan. Anyway, why that is relevant is that was the time that I spent with my father, and that was in his garage building bikes. And when he did this, he would listen to that type of music, FM radio music. Now, back where I came, we all remember KFRC. Remember KFRC?
And KSAN, too.
But that's the station I'm going to get to. My dad listened to KSAN.
So did my dad.
But mostly, Walter, kids our age that are 8, 9, and 10 are listening to like the Jackson 5 and the Osmond Brothers, and that's on KFRC AM radio, bubblegum music, pop music. And
At the time, the bigger
well,
stuff,
right, exactly. My dad did not listen to that, and he listened to it, but when he was working on his bikes or music was Sabbath or Allman Brothers.
And that's as heavy as it could be back then.
Right, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, The Who, whoever it was. So I was exposed to hard rock, I guess, from a very early age. I mean, Iron Butterfly, he liked Jefferson Airplane.
So did my father. We have a lot in common there.
He liked Santana. He liked Jimi Hendrix. So I remember him playing the Easy Rider soundtrack album. Remember that? And it had a whole bunch of different artists on it. Steppenwolf, which is a biker music. Born to Be Wild, The Pusher. And so that's when I heard the really heavy guitars and heavy music. But it wasn't until I heard Stairway to Heaven and I heard basically the rest of Led Zeppelin 4. And I never heard a vocal tone like Robert Plant had. And at the end of the song, when, after Jimmy does that really awesome lead guitar, and that was another thing, I'd never heard lead guitar, at least like that before, to where it stood out, that lead that Jimmy does at the end.
Bluesy, but then
bluesy,
rock.
But so hard rock. And then, when Plant comes in, and as they want to down the road, I can't get that pitch. That is so high, and I never heard a vocal tone like that yet. That was the first time I ever heard that. So I was hooked for that forever.
He was in his prime.
Stairway to Heaven and the song Shaft were my favorite songs ever. I don't know why Shaft, but I loved that song because I was a kid when it came, probably 5 or 6. But Stairway to Heaven was always the one that stood out to me, that had everything in it. Kind of a slow song, cool lyrical thing to it, and then it kind of got heavier and it went on, and then all of a sudden the drums come in and apart, and it comes through, and then by the end it's just, straight up jamming. And then to me that was a rock song to me, and I felt that the whole record, because so that's my intro. I'm 8 years old, it's my birthday, and my dad goes, "What do you want for your birthday, Steven?" And I go, "Can you buy me that Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven?" And he goes, "Well, I'll just buy the whole record for you." I didn't know. I used to buy 45s in those days, but they didn't necessarily make 45s for hard rock or FM albums. At least I didn't see them. Anyway, it was still like more bubblegum music. So he took me down to the record factory. Remember the record factory? They don't have those anymore. And he bought me the 8-track tape of it. And
wow, you are old.
He bought me the 8-track tape, and it was Led Zeppelin 4. And I think the 8-track tape costed it was
$7.99,
$6.99.
Okay.
I think $7.99 if you're pushing it. And I think in between the third and fourth track, they had to take Rock and Roll. It starts for like 15 seconds or 20 seconds, and then it stops, and it goes and change tracks. And where it left off, kind of like my show when I break up a couple of the episodes, it kind of reverses itself and shows up back again. So I'm kind of like stealing from that theory. But that was my first record, was Led Zeppelin 4, and from then on, I knew every single song on that album.
Did you know at the time that you had a high voice? Because you do, right? You can hit the highs. Did you know that? Or
I don't think that I tried to even think that I could. I think I tried to imitate Plant. I remember as I got older, I used to always, because, bands, early metal bands in the 80s would always go, whoa! So I would always try to do that, but I don't think early on I didn't. And I knew every track on this album, and every track backwards, forwards. I mean, when the levee breaks, the drums, John, just so heavy, and I just think the whole record itself, Black Dog, going to California, because I lived in California, and I always wondered what that meant. Misty Mountain Hop. I was like, "What's a Misty Mountain Hop?" And
That's a cool song. I remember.
And then I find out it's basically like an outdoor festival where everybody goes and gets totally high and drunk and fucked up. But when you're 8 years old, you don't know those sort of things. So I would have to say it started there. And there's many records that I listened to for that defined what I did, back then. I
what
loved
you
it.
Would become.
I liked the Lynyrd Skynyrd. I liked Elton. I like Aerosmith, obviously, but I don't think any of those really niched me. Even Sabbath. Don't get me wrong. I love Black Sabbath, but it wasn't something that niched me right away.
That's an acquired thing later on.
And I think because I think I have like 10 records here that I went through that made me. And
if I guess, I could probably name like 5, but go ahead.
Probably. So I didn't necessarily put them in order, but I kind of did by when they came out. So the next two would be If You Want Blood by AC/DC live, because I have to be honest with you. I didn't listen to them. I didn't hear them until this live record. I didn't know who they were. Some people try to claim that they did, but that's kind of bullshit, because I remember seeing.
And what year was that?
That would have been 78. It's 1978.
See, I was a senior in high school, so
yeah,
I was a little older than you.
But I did remember that they were on a couple of Dan the Greens, and they played around, and I'd heard their name before, but I don't remember anybody ever coming to me.
I saw them twice.
I seen both those days. I seen them with Bon Scott at the Oakland Auditorium,
which is phenomenal days.
Yeah, back in the day before he died. But I would say that a lot of my vocal sound, obviously, is Bon.
Right.
You know what I mean? And also a little bit of Udo. And even though I would have to say that in my top 10 records that probably define, that I'm going through, I did not add but Restless and Wild is right up there, and I felt that there's a lot of other ones as well that I didn't give it to, but because my voice is so much AC/DC, I think Bon, and I loved Bon, and after that it was something that I had to listen. I got more and more, and If You Want Blood, I went backwards to all the catalog, and then from there on I went it was no looking back. It was totally forward from then.
And you remember at Dan the Green, they played Highway to Hell, which is a new song
right.
on that they hadn't even come out with the album yet, but
Right.
they debuted it, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
right?
that was. I remember that. That was in '79. That was in '79, summer of '79. So, I talked about this next guy a lot. This record was huge to me. I used to quote it. I used to try to quote it the best I could. And again, this is another live record, and I think I hit out of my 10, maybe 4 of these are live records. And this is a Ted Nugent Double Live Gonzo. And you guys, you've seen me talk about Ted. I did a whole episode on Spirit of the Wild. I love Ted Nugent. He's one of my fucking heroes. I listen to Ted Nugent all the time, man. I never get tired of it. I love his spirit. I love his show. I love the way he's always, I've said it enough. He needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But on this record, it was like you bet your ass, baby. We're here to you do one when he does that whole little rap. I mean, to me that was awesome, and that's where that band must have got the name Nashville Pussy, because right before he does Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, he goes, "All right, they must be in Nashville. I want to dedicate to all that Nashville pussy." Woo! This one's called Wang Dang Sweet Poontang. So I'm assuming when I saw that name of that band whenever they formed, I said, "Oh, these guys must be obviously took that from Ted Nugent."
And also, Ted's got 2 voices. As a kid, I always thought it was him, but there's actually songs that the guitar player.
Well, Derek St. Holmes,
right?
Derek St. Holmes, he played. He played.
So he was a little influence on you too.
Yeah, well, definitely. But I mean, yes,
similar
for sure.
voices. They were
very
different,
similar. Yeah, because Ted could sing the Derek St. Holmes stuff, and you couldn't necessarily tell after the fact. But I mean, on Cat Scratch Fever, that's all Ted. On
Free for All.
Well, no, that's Derek St. Holmes.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So everything after Cat Scratch Fever, I think, is all just Ted Nugent. State of Shock, Weekend Warriors.
All the big albums are the ones
Scream
before
Dream.
that.
Well, not necessarily, because
I think so.
The thing is, remember we were talking about that, Walt. He played Dan the Greens up until 1980 and was like one of the biggest. I mean, I'm talking
a stadium.
Dan the Green was a stadium show in the Bay Area that had 55,000. This was before festivals. This is 45 years ago. Back in about 40 years ago now. It's been since '79, which was that day on the Green, which was
Monsters of Rock.
Yeah,
right?
Monsters of Rock. Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, AC/DC, Mahogany Rush. 4 bands on a bill in Oakland at the Oakland Stadium where the A's and the Raiders play, and it wasn't a tour.
And the green, that's why they call it
Dan the Green. There was nothing on the
infield.
You just walked out there and smoked weed and took drugs and other kinds of stuff. But he was a mainstay there. I mean, that's why I'm saying, if you're a guy that's my age, Ted Nugent was one of your fucking heroes, man. Straight up. I mean, he just was, and I can't say enough about him he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, there's rockers like me. You're not going to be able to talk to my 2 guitar players in my bands or any of the guys I played with, and believe me, they'll bring that up. There's always, records as you're listening to. I think the next set of records, even though we've talked about 3 of them, were the ones that really kind of set me up. And I wasn't a huge fan, but I have to give the next one to Kiss Destroyer. Kiss, I liked every song on that record. I liked the bass line in Detroit Rock City. To me, it still kills.
It was in jukeboxes
just the makeup,
at that time.
the look.
Remember,
I know some people were like, there was Kiss lovers and Kiss haters, and I loved Kiss, and it was hard rock and roll to me. That was the time of the movie Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of cool that rock and roll was getting some type of, media attention, something, because they never paid attention to Led Zeppelin or any of the other bands, Alice Cooper, anything else that I liked. AC/DC, there was no underground, but it seemed like it was. It's only in the last maybe 20, 25, 30 years they've given those bands their respect. For you younger people, you don't know, but believe me, there was a time when you couldn't even hear Zeppelin on the radio when I was a kid, even on FM stations all the time didn't play it. But I'd have to give that Kiss, because it was raw. It was raw. It wasn't the greatest playing, but It was raw.
I think the early Kisses release.
I think the whole idea of it, you know, and I like that record. I liked a lot of songs on that record. The end of part 1. You want to hear the rest of this story? Stay tuned.